Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk about what happened with Congress over the weekend in regards to the next stimulus plan. So in this video, we're going to talk about the bill that was passed, we're going to talk about unemployment, and then we're going to talk about what's going on right now in the economy. But hey, if you're new to this channel, feel free to stick around, like and subscribe. On this channel, I like to talk about money, I like to talk about finance, I like to talk about investing. I like to talk about using wisdom and understanding that you can succeed financially from wherever you are. All right, guys, so if you haven't heard the news, the Democratic Party, or I guess you could say the House, they have passed a bill for the post office. The bill that they actually passed was $25 billion for support for the post office. This really is just in regards to the voting. So how exciting is that? So let me tell you exactly what did that accomplish over the weekend. Nothing. So Nancy Pelosi, the leader of the House, she wanted to try to get this bill passed. So basically she thinks that she has leverage. So she's trying to pass this post office bill. So for whatever reason, I don't really know the details. They probably don't have the real details of why this is such important to her to get passed when you have a lot of people hurting. So over this weekend, she had the House come back to pass this bill, but they did not do a bill for the stimulus or for the unemployment, which many people from the House was begging her to do. Now, the reason why she's trying to do this is she's saying, well, you know, if I just pass a standalone bill for just a stimulus or whatever, I'm not going to have any leverage for getting this bill passed for the post office or getting money for the post office. Now, the funny thing about this bill is she went through the process of getting this bill written up, drawn up, $25 billion, in hopes that maybe Congress will pass it when they've already told her they're not passing a bill for that amount of money. But she feels though she has leverage because the need for stimulus is very important. So basically what happens in politics is, yes, you and I, they use us as a tool to be able to get back at the other party in order to try to pass whatever bills or whatever it is they want. Now, this isn't something that hasn't been seen before. This isn't something that hasn't happened before. It happens quite often. I remember back in during the recession back in 08, 09, where unemployment was cut off because people in Congress couldn't agree on some tax cuts. And so what did they do? Well, until we get what we want, we're going to cut off unemployment. And that's what they did. Now, remind you, these are the same people that you voted for. We voted for. We voted for some of them in our particular states, cities, counties, etc. And we voted for these people to do what's best for us, but yet they tend to only do what's best for their interests. Not everybody, but enough do in the government to where those that are in leadership, that are like over the House and over the Senate and our president and even more constituents, a lot of times what they do is they have their own things in mind. For example, in our current presidency, you may see some people over different departments and you may not understand why. Well, that's because they probably gave a lot of money to the campaign. So what happens is when you see people in positions and getting in certain things happening, when people give money to a campaign, they're expecting something back. You know, it's called lobbying. So this post office thing has completely taken control of this whole next stimulus check. Now, I understand that, yes, post office, if we're going to have, you know, voting, absentee voting and stuff like that to the post office, then yes, we do need to make sure that it is secure, but it definitely ain't important than the people in this nation, a life. It's definitely not more important than that. So let's take a look at this bill and let's take a look at this whole post office thing. On one side, you have where Trump, you know, he's like, the post office doesn't need money. They said they don't need money, and I don't trust sending in, you know, voting through the mail. On the other hand, you have the Democrats or this House, they're saying, hey, you know, they need this money to ensure that things are going to be safe, and so to make sure that their production and everything is keeping steady, and so that way we can get these votes in and all these different things, right? So, all right, so let's take a look at it. So if you're voting from, you know, home, more than likely you may have more people who choose to vote because they're voting from home and they feel more safe, you know, voting from home. So it could be a possibility that you see a bigger voter turnout because people are literally just voting from home. And like I said, you know, they may feel more safe because we are still in a pandemic. However, do we really trust the whole thing about voting through the mail? And then if we're not voting through the mail, then, you know, people will have to come into precincts to vote but then do you feel safe about that? So then what does a person do who's currently quarantined or currently, ill or sick? What do they do? Do we want to be around someone who has been affected by this pandemic and that is ill and that can possibly spread? Do you want to be 6 feet or even 10 feet from them? So it's a very interesting dynamic. Personally, I think you should have a hybrid model, but either way, it's going to be some type of issues, because one of the things that we may not understand is there's still some voter suppression going on where some voting precincts have been closed up, which means that you have other ones that may have more people that need to come there, and people just may not feel comfortable. And then, like I said, if you're sick and you're quarantined, do you even really need to be out there in the midst of people, whether you're practicing 6 feet or not? The answer is no. So we have two crazy situations going on, and both parties are pulling and saying we don't need to do it, we do need to do it. And this has been used as a tool to pretty much just try to get what another party wants. And I don't like it at all. And I'm sure you don't either, because if you're struggling right now, if you're hurting, you're waiting for some type of help. Now, we do have some small good news, is that unemployment is actually starting to roll out the additional unemployment of $300. Remember, not $400, but $300. Remember that each state has to put in an extra $100 on top of the $300, which makes it the $400. Now, all the other states, they have to, apply for this because they're applying to FEMA for this. So FEMA is where the money is coming from, because they're using like disaster aid to do this. Now, they already said they won't be able to do this but for so long, but probably 3 to 4 weeks. So some states have started to file. I know Arizona has already started to pay, and some other states, they have the payment or the funds that's pending right now, and some have been approved, some haven't yet applied. And then you have like one state like South Dakota that has declined. So even though $300 may not be a lot of money, it is something that will come to people, and it's supposed to be retroactive back to, I guess, when the unemployment was cut off at the end of July. So that means, people should see, an extra $900 or $1,200 or so. If it's just the $300, if it's the $400, an extra $1,200 or an extra $1,600 to kind of help them get through this time if they really need the income. So the unemployment is such a huge deal because, as we've seen, that every single week people have been losing their jobs and just having a harder time working. It's not just the normal, you work a 9-to-5 situation. You have a lot of people who have started to have to leave their work because they don't know what they're going to do about their kids in school, or there's nowhere for their kids to go because in their area, daycares and stuff are shut down. The media doesn't do a good job at covering how things are going everywhere, because a lot of different states have different things going on to where businesses and things, they're not being able to operate, which affect a lot of people. So yes, it's nice to say, hey, let's give them $300, $400. It'd be a great incentive for them to get back to work. Well, how do you get back to work if there's nowhere for you to go to get back to work, or your state currently has restrictions, because some of them have put different restrictions on the state or in different counties? One of the heart-wrenching things that I hate to see is when you start seeing people commenting about not feeling like they know what they should do in life anymore because they lost everything. Like I read a comment from someone who they were like, I lost everything, I just don't want to live anymore. Or when you hear someone say, this week we're getting evicted, me and my family don't know where we're going to go. Or you see the person that's saying, I need to get to work, but I just lost my vehicle, I don't know what I'm going to do. These are all the things that are happening right now while they're still toiling. See, I don't blame people for this, I blame the government for this. But because if they had initially just put certain mandates in place from the jump, if they had initially just stopped the cash flow that comes and filters up through taxes and through payments and things like that come up to the government, then maybe the lower level, like our banks and things like that, could say, hey, you know what, let's not worry about people paying us this, that, and the other. Because a lot of people say, why didn't we just stop paying bills, or just everybody just stop charging people for like 2 months and everybody just hard-nosed quarantine, and then we get some type of stimulus money that may be able to help? Well, it's because of money. See, the government never wanted to stop its cash flow, and so because it didn't, it trickled down. So the people who end up suffering are the American people, most of the people who are struggling, people who just, and really it's affected a lot of people. Even if you made good money, if your job ain't open, your job ain't open, and you're just in the same boat with everyone. So this situation is not fair and is not cool at all, that yet many of our Congress people, they go home, they eat like they want to, they do what they need to, no problem. They travel around, fly back and forth, laugh and joke, just enjoy their day like nothing is going on. Meanwhile, you have an entire nation where a lot of people are struggling and trying to figure out what they're going to do left or right. But one of the things that is kind of making it hard for them is the fact that everyone has to be concerned about money, because they still got bills, because they still got to make a mortgage payment, a rent payment, a car payment, or to even be able to embark on an opportunity because of the amount of pressure they have on their shoulders right now. Nevertheless, I think our government, our Congress should be doing more. And like I stated in my last stimulus update, when it comes to the time for us to vote, make sure you take into account whoever it is that you're voting for. Make sure you know what they've been trying to do during this time to help people. If they haven't been doing anything and they've been playing and they haven't been voicing up, trying to make things happen, trying to push, or even trying to do things on the state level the best way they can, listen, they don't need to be there, because you're voting for a person that does not care about you. And what sense does that make? All right, guys, be blessed, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.